The July 2nd meeting of the Common Council meeting to order. Please rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Councillor Olson.
Here.
Councillor Fennessy.
Here.
Councillor Bender.
Here.
Councillor Sweeney is absent. Councillor McDonald. Councillor Mazzolia is excused. Councillor Finsland.
Here.
Councillor Herrick.
Here.
Councillor McKenzie.
Here.
And Councillor Brown is excused.
Recognizing a quorum, I'll ask for consideration of the minutes of June 18th, regular council meeting.
Second.
For the motion and second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 5.1 is the public hearing regarding an ordinance to rezone lots in the vicinity of Lambourne Avenue and North 57th Street from suburban to R1 one-family residential district.
At this time, I'll call for a public hearing and ask those that wish to speak in favor of to do so now. For the second time, those that wish to speak in favor of to do so now. And for the third time, those that wish to speak in favor of may do so now. Hearing none, those that wish to speak in opposition may do so now. For the second time, those that wish to speak in opposition may do so now. And for the third time, those that wish to speak in opposition may do so now. Hearing and seeing none, I call the public hearing to a close and ask the pleasure of the council.
Motion to approve. Second.
For the motion and second to approve, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 6 is a consent agenda. Under item 6.11.3, Assistant Public Works Director Janico is requesting that item be referred back to Public Works Committee.
Move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
For the motion and second, Counselor?
Yeah, I'd like to pull item 614, please.
You want to poll it for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, Counselor?
You want to do this first or wait?
Let's do the motion first, and we'll come back to that. All in favor of the approving the consent agenda, except for that has been removed, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Counselor?
I'd like to pull 6.8, item 1 and 2 for discussion.
6.
Six point eight.
6.8, 1 and 2.
1 and 2 for discussion, please.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The motion then before you is to adopt except for those that have been polled. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Counselor Herrick?
Do you want to, which one are we taking first? Do you want to take 6.14 or 6.8 first?
6.14, I guess.
Okay, 6.14 was to approve the application to amend the premise for a special event and a one-day cabaret license for Dodgy's East End Tavern, 2114 East 5th Street for July 13th.
Yeah, just clarification on there. It says date and time effective from July 13th from 2 o'clock to July 14th to 2:30 a.m. So just wondering, they are just allowed to play the music till noon, or excuse me, 12 a.m.? Is that correct?
Right, music has to stop at midnight.
Okay, all right, just want clarification.
But bar closes at 12:30, so they just run it through there in case there's still people mingling in the parking lot.
All right, thanks.
Counselor Olson?
I don't know if Steve maybe or Cammy, I'm not sure, but.
Can we back up? We need a motion to approve 6.14.
Move to approve 6.14. Second.
For the motion, multiple seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, Article 1, approve the following job descriptions, A, B, and C. Are we done with our evaluation or assessment of what's going on down at ESD? Are we to a point that that's the reason for the managers for these departments? Everybody's yes.
Yes, I can at least start if it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we've kind of gone through the recommendations from the Kurt Soderberg study, and this is one of the first steps. The first step was to bring on a new director, and now rewriting job descriptions for the top level of managers under the director's position is the next step, and to fill those, and then those people would in turn help craft the rest of the job descriptions, the things that will fall underneath of their purview.
So we've got a bunch of managers listed. Do we have people in place for these people to manage, or in all of these departments? And are there old managers that are going to different positions? Is there a cost savings? Are we? I couldn't get to the human resource meeting, and I apologize for bringing it up here, but
Sure, I will. I'll try my best to answer your question. What we're doing is we're taking the existing personnel at ESD, and we are basically reworking the organization chart. And this is the first step, is going from a flat structure. I believe there were previously 6 managers underneath the administrator, and we are reducing that to 3 managers. And those positions will be open to current ESD employees. That would be current managers or other ESD employees that may want to apply. So that's the first step, is moving some people out of their current positions into these manager positions. And then from there, those 3 new managers will work with the director to craft what goes underneath their particular area of supervision.
so you'll essentially get back to 6 managers again? Is that what you're telling me?
No, that is not the intention, no.
So you're down to 3 now, but
What there will likely be is different positions beneath those. They might be coordinators, they might be supervisors, there could be lead workers, but that will be something that the director and the managers will craft out with existing people.
okay. So your staffing is staying the same? We haven't eliminated any?
Well, currently, Dan, we do have 5 vacancies, I believe, that have not been filled at
Okay.
ESD, and we're not sure what the end numbers will be for number of employees, but right now they are down 5 employees. I know that some of the positions that are vacant will get filled, probably in a different way.
Okay,
The end result is for it to not cost more money.
okay,
but,
that's what I'm looking, and we didn't have to lay anybody off?
No,
Okay.
no, we have not yet.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion to adopt 6.8, 1 and 2? For the motion and second, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 7.1, Police Chief Legess and staff are presenting information regarding the increase in the sale and use of synthetic marijuana, an update on measures that the city of Duluth has taken to address the problem, and potential recommendations for further action to be taken by the city of Superior.
Chief Legess.
Thank you. City Attorney Prell and I have had a series of discussions over the last several months about the creation of a city ordinance that might be effective in reducing the chance of a retail establishment selling synthetic drugs in the city of Superior. Synthetic drugs have been shown to have a wide range of negative effects on the health of those that ingest them. These include relatively short-term effects such as headaches and nausea, to dangerous effects such as elevated blood pressure and elevated pulse rate, to long-lasting mental health effects such as paranoia, hallucinations, and addiction. Individuals under the influence of these substances have exhibited violent and self-destructive behavior and represent a danger to themselves and to others. With the increased availability of synthetic drugs in the Twin Ports, there has been a drastic increase in the number of disturbances and medical events that have been attributed to the use of these substances. Our current ordinance prohibits the sale of synthetic cannabinoids and lists a series of specific chemical compounds and their analogs which are specifically unlawful to possess or sell. While well-intended, it does not effectively ban the possession and sale of synthetic drugs, as the chemical makeup of synthetic drugs is being continuously changed by those that manufacture them to stay one step ahead of the changing list of banned substances. By altering the chemical compounds, the manufacturers have been successful to the degree that state and federal laws have been ineffective in preventing the sale of synthetic drugs, even in cases with the full attention of the legal system on them. A local example is the Last Place on Earth that continues to sell the substances in spite of multiple search warrants, arrest, and seizures of properties at that location. Because of the difficulties in creating effective state statutes and federal laws to ban a constantly changing list of chemical compounds and the debilitating effects on the users of these substances, the City of Duluth has recently authored and passed an ordinance that requires the licensure of any establishment that would sell synthetic drugs. It creates requirements and prohibitions on who can be licensed, establishes zoning rules for the locations of any such business, hours of operations are determined, and a structure for the repeal of any issued license in the event the requirements are not met. A key requirement is for the accurate listing of all ingredients contained in the packaging of all synthetic drugs being sold. Through such labeling, a buyer is informed what they are purchasing and ingesting. In the event that the retailer sells synthetic drugs without the presence of such labeling, or if the labeling is found to be inaccurate, the retailer could be fined and the license for continued sales could be revoked. Such a revocation will make any further sale of synthetic drugs unlawful. I feel that an ordinance that closely parallels the ordinance passed by the City of Duluth would be helpful in deterring the retail sales of synthetic drugs in the City of Superior. It would give the city an effective law to regulate the practices of any retail establishment that would sell synthetic drugs in this city. While there is legislation being written that City Attorney Frell can talk more knowledgeably than I on, that will address a long list of potentially banned substances and their compounds, and they may pass that relatively quickly, it does not address the threat that a retail establishment will be opened in our city which would sell synthetic drugs now. I will work with the City Attorney's Office to have a draft ordinance available for your review by the next City Council meeting.
Thank you, Chief. Questions? Councilor Olson?
Chuck, is there, when you get down to the logic of all this stuff, it's something I can't say on TV, but are there laws, or Frog will address this to you too, you go buy a pack of cigarettes and there's a tobacco tax on it. And you have to pay your tobacco tax as a retailer to the tobacco company, or you get in violation with the ATF. Where is that stuff with the synthetic drugs?
To my knowledge, it doesn't exist yet. Those that would sell it would be paying income taxes, but a tax per unit like there is on a pack of cigarettes or a bottle of alcohol does not exist.
So, I'm not aware of it. Yeah. So it starts right there. Tax the damn stuff. If you're smoking it, it should be compared to a smokable legal drug, which could be a cigarette, which could be a cigar, which could be a pipe, could be anything. So, and I'm very well familiar with Last Place on Earth. My nephew is a police officer over in Duluth, and he loves being on patrol over there because Carlson pays him time and a half, double time or whatever. And the fact of the matter is there are businesses that are closing around that establishment. I've talked to Mayor Ness about this, and it's something that I would support anything that we could do. The sooner the better, so that we don't have the problem before it becomes a problem.
Yeah, it seems to me that the problem is the labeling, the fact that it is not for human consumption. It's labeled as bath salts or incense or fertilizer or whatever else they call it. We don't tax those things as individual items. If you buy a bottle of perfume, it's not taxed just as a bottle of perfume. It's just a retail sale. And same thing with incense or other things. It seems very awkward if it's not an item that's sold that way. How do we do it? I think we did attempt to write an ordinance that prevented the sales in Superior some time ago, and what we've done has been at least effective as far as I can tell. We've been able to prevent any retailer from coming in thus far.
If I could comment, the city of Duluth has similar ordinances, as do cities across Wisconsin and Minnesota. Our ordinance has what would appear to be a pretty substantial list of, I think, 6 or 7 compounds and their analogs, which are specifically prohibited for sale in the city of Superior. Those same compounds are prohibited in other cities. And again, the problem is that isn't what they sell. They make a small molecular change to the compound, and it is no longer one of the prohibited substances. And that's why the current legislation has, I think you said like 600 compounds which would be prohibited. And if you could list 600, can a chemist come up with number 601? So the intent of the Wisconsin legislation is to make such a all-encompassing list that it would be very difficult to arrive at a substance which is not either one of the banned substances or an analog thereof. Our list, our current ordinance, would not be effective if somebody came to the city and said, I'm selling a substance not on your list that isn't really an analog of any of the compounds you had listed. We have no law in place that would prevent them from opening, that would make it unlawful for them to sell it. And I think through the creation of an ordinance that would require licensure and require accurate labeling of the packages, which I think when you consider that the package contents are constantly changing, it would be very difficult to make a list of contents that is accurate. You'd always be behind the curve. So it isn't to make it lawful to do it. We're inviting that somebody do it because here's an ordinance that says exactly how you have to do it. It's actually to make it very difficult to do lawfully. And if you are going to do it, you have to jump through the hoops so that everybody knows what they're buying. And if you're not doing it exactly right, that license can be revoked.
Yeah, I certainly don't disagree with that. I just think that trying to tax things on an individual basis would be a relatively impossible task. But I think that an ordinance to prevent the generalized sale is certainly an effective tool, and I think we should pursue that. But as far as finding an avenue to find a way to tax the individual packages, I think that would be almost impossible to find an appropriate way to do it, any more than taxing bags of fertilizer or anything else.
This is just, as Chief Legess has indicated, it's another arrow in the quiver that we hope to use to keep the synthetics in mass, at least, out of our community. We've been lucky. Maybe there's some skillfulness in there too, but it seems like a lot of dumb luck, in that we haven't been ground zero for a lot of synthetic drug transactions, at least as vivid and as with the kind of volume that we see across the bridge. I frankly think that if we ever get to a place where we are acting to revoke a license or to shut down a business that we have licensed in part to allow the sale of these products, that we've already lost. I hope we never get to that place. And the reason I think we might not is I had a very encouraging discussion today with a legislative aide down in Madison, and she's also fully steeped in the health and human services profession, so she's really kind of a unique hybrid of a health professional and fully dialed in with the legislation landscape. And she said there's reason to be optimistic. She's aware of some legislation that's in the hopper that's soon to be introduced that will cast a much wider net than has previously existed with regard to the prohibition of these substances. The DOJ has been throwing a lot of resources and a lot of time with the use of their crime lab analysts and their attorneys to speak to other states, gauge the success of other jurisdictions, and frankly to just keep a tally of the substances that they're seizing as a part of and associated with some bad effects with human consumption, and analyzing them and forever adding to the list of substances that they want to control and they want to ban. And importantly, then they're also strengthening, it sounds like they're strengthening their prohibition on the analogs, as the chief has mentioned. That analogs, by the way, are something that are of a similar physical structure to the compound or the substance in question, but can have a very different chemical or biological makeup, and therefore different effects on the central nervous system and other aspects of human consumption. So take heart in the notion that it's very likely that a state law by way of a bill will be introduced in a matter of weeks rather than months, as explained to me earlier by this legislative aid that was so informative for me, at least, and take some confidence in the notion that this ordinance, while certainly not a bad idea, I think, from a dig in and take every caution we can think of standpoint, might never be utilized because a more meaningful state law with a criminal impact to those who might choose to violate it will soon be in play. That's my hope, and speaking earlier with some of these folks down south, I think we can count on that happening.
Any further questions or discussion, Counselor?
I just had an informational question now. About 4 years ago when this came up before the council, I remember looking up the state statute on it. And the state statute said something like, the cannabinoids and that, and anything that contained THC. Now, would all of these analogs still contain THC?
THC is the active ingredient in marijuana and hashish, and it's not necessarily contained in synthetic drugs. We formerly used the term synthetic cannabinoids because what we were dealing with was synthetic marijuana. And now with bath salts, there's one name for them, but it could be a powder that is a stimulant, and it could be a designer drug that's a depressant or hallucinogen. And I don't think we should limit ourselves by saying synthetic cannabinoids, because the product that's for sale now isn't necessarily that, and the product that might be offered for sale a month from now might be different than what we're looking at now. The Duluth ordinance has a very broad description of what is a synthetic drug. I think we should leave it open like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Counselor Harris.
Thanks. Just one more question, Chief. I was looking at the Frog sent us, the information on what Duluth has. I guess one of the questions that I may have is, do you know if all these products, like the Last Place on Earth, are selling? Are they all labeled not for human consumption? Is that why that's in their particular their ordinance, or do you know if they're all labeled that?
I know they're commonly labeled as such. I don't know that all products that would be synthetic drugs are labeled as such. I believe that synthetic drugs could be bought in bulk and sold in an unlabeled package. So I doubt that everything being sold there has a label.
Okay, would that have a difference then if there's no label on it, whether it can be sold?
The ordinance as written in Duluth, and I would propose here, would require the accurate labeling of every unit of sale.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again.
Item 8.1, Mayor Hagan is reappointing Jean Till to the Library Board for another 3-year term expiring July 2016.
For the motion and second to approve, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Say, did we need to receive and file 7-1?
I don't think it required any action, just a no action. Item 10.1 is a resolution introduced by the City Plan Commission authorizing a special use permit for a mobile kiosk at 4932 East 2nd Street.
For the motion and second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Item 11.1 is an ordinance introduced by the Public Works Committee amending the traffic code speed limits by adding 30 miles per hour on Tower Avenue between North 52nd and 64th Streets.
Motion to approve. Second.
You've heard the motion and second. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Item 11.2 is an ordinance introduced by the Public Works Committee repealing and recreating City Code Chapter 34, the construction code of the City of Superior.
Second.
You've heard the motion and second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Item 11.3 is an ordinance introduced by the Public Safety Committee amending the traffic code, operation of motor vehicles by adding Division 2, low-speed vehicles.
Second.
You've heard the motion and second. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Stand adjourned.